Imagine walking into a home that stays tidy without constant cleaning. That's what we've achieved over the past 7 years thanks to 7 simple habits. So in this video, I'm going to show you the exact habits we use to keep our home effortlessly tidy and how you can start them today for less chaos and more peace. This first habit relates to slowing down the incoming with one simple mindset shift. A few times a year, my team and I have to tackle a large decluttering project that includes a lot of garbage. So much garbage that we end up having to take a trip to our local dump. It is smelly, it is nasty, it is disgusting, and every single time it is an eye-opening experience. It is especially powerful to go right before Christmas. I'll be spending a week trying to make sure I'm getting the kids enough gifts, figuring out what gifts I have to get for everybody. And then I pull up to the dump and I see discarded clothes, household items whipped up, furniture piled everywhere, and toys, so many toys. And I think to myself, right. The world already has a lot of stuff. Let's be mindful about what we consume. I have this theory that everybody should have to take a trip to the dump at least once a year for this visual reminder of waste. This is why habit number 1 when it comes to consuming is to think like an environmentalist. This habit is a simple mindset shift that can take milliseconds, but once you start, if you do it regularly, I have found that it sticks to the point where it's hard not to think about it and instantly leads to less clutter in our homes. Questions I now ask myself when I'm consuming: how long will this item last? Will it break easily? Once it breaks, how long is it going to sit in the landfill? Can I find it secondhand instead? What would David Suzuki do? Sometimes it's easy for us to think that as individuals, there's very little that we can do to support our planet. But if you think about how much power we have just by consuming a little bit less, because buying less supports our clutter-free home and supports a healthier planet moving forward. Win-win. The next habit almost requires us to do less, and I think it might be my favorite one. A few days ago, I was out and about with the kids and we were doing some errands and we ended up at the bookstore. And there were so many options for activity books and craft kits and puzzles. And I found myself instantly thinking, ooh, I bet they would love this one, or ooh, this one would be perfect for them. But then I gave my head a shake and thought to myself, back at home, both kids have craft drawers that are overflowing with activity books and notepads and supplies. And I reminded myself, we don't need any of these. What we need to do is go home and use what we already own. Habit number 2 is to simply use what we own. One of my all-time favorite ways to declutter is to use something out, use it up, just use it. A lot of the time it is so tempting to just, pay the $20 and get a quick high from bringing home this new, shiny, brand new item. But forcing ourselves to pause and focus on finishing that quilt or finally dedicating time to learn that ukulele that we bought 4 years ago, that can take a little more energy. But in my experience, taking the time to use what we've already brought into our homes is so much better for our long-term health and happiness. But how do we get in the habit of doing this regularly? Next time you're thinking, ooh, look at this new item, or researching something new to buy, just pause and think, do I need this new yarn? Or do I need to go home, carve out a long, leisurely morning with my favorite drink, and finish one of the 6 projects that I've started in the last year? This habit is so helpful for anyone who loves creative ventures or new hobbies, which can be great in so many ways, but can sometimes be dangerous when it comes to adding new items to our home that we might not have room for. To take this one step further, if you decide, yes, Marianne, I do need this surfboard. I have been dreaming about learning to surf for the past year, and I've saved up for a trip to California, and this is happening. Amazing. But if we're adding this new surfboard to your tiny shed out back, then maybe it's time that we sell the 3 pairs of snowshoes that we bought 5 years ago and haven't touched since 2021. And that thought takes us directly to our next habit. Number 3 is one of my most used habits, and after 7 years, I do it without even thinking about it. If you watch my recent video about decluttering like you're moving, you may recall that my husband came home from a work conference with a bunch of free swag. Most of it we instantly got rid of, but there were a couple of things we kept. There was a t-shirt for Scott and a hat for our son Leo. Now, once we decided these were keep, we didn't just tossed them into our collection, and moved on. We added a step, a short step, but an important step. We took 30 seconds to look in our hat basket and choose one that we know no one's been wearing and nobody cared about. And we added that to our donate pile. Then we took another 90 seconds and Scott found 2 t-shirts from his drawer that he knew he didn't need anymore. This one in, one out rule has absolutely saved our family when it comes to keeping clutter out. It is a classic for a good reason. It is easy to wrap our minds around and it works. The easiest way to cultivate this habit is to make it part of the buying process. So as you're unloading your car or opening a gift from your sister or unpacking the loot bags that your kids just brought home from a birthday party, we are gonna add this critical step. This new step is considering what the heck these items are going to replace. Because if you're over the age of 25, chances are you already have a house full of stuff. If you're bringing home a new white t-shirt, are you replacing an old one that doesn't fit anymore? Are you replacing the red one you bought last summer but you realize you actually hate the color red? Or maybe it's replacing the one you really loved but you got salsa on it a couple months ago and no matter what you try, you just can't get the stain out. Whatever it is, this item or items that are being replaced, something must be done with them. Donate them, give them to your cousin, cut them up for rags, whatever you need to do. Now, obviously in real life, this isn't gonna always happen instantly and seamlessly. We all have jobs, we all have to make dinner, we all have to sleep. I don't even do this every single time instantly. But some version of this one in, one out rule needs to be incorporated to maintain the balance of physical items in your home. If you're currently overwhelmed with clutter, you might even wanna try the one in, two out rule, like Scott did with his t-shirts. Next up is another habit that relates to consuming, and more specifically being intentional about what we consume so we don't wake up one morning and realize we're drowning in stuff. In my 20s and 30s, I was pretty standard when it came to fashion. I wanted to look cute. I wanted to replicate the stuff that I saw on Instagram or in magazines or what I thought the cool girls were wearing. The problem is that with trying to keep up with the trends was never ending. Trends change constantly. The number of blazers that went in and out of style while I worked an office job was bananas. Do we like them short and boxy? Do we like them short and fitted? Are they supposed to be long and flowy? Do we want shoulder pads? The exact same thing happened when I started to live on my own. I was in my 20s and I wanted my whole house to look like it came straight out of HGTV. I used the paint colors that I thought were cool and I tried to create everything to make it look just like everybody else's, but I could never keep up. By the time I'd saved enough to buy those big jar candles that were in style, all of a sudden tapered candles were back in style. And I was left with a pile of stuff that wasn't cool anymore. And then I realized, really, maybe I didn't even love that much to begin with. When I started to look around our house at the things that we loved, I realized that keeping up the trends was sucking up so much of my time, energy, and the space in my home. That's why habit number 4 is quitting trends. Quitting trying to keep up with what's cool. Since this realization, I've gotten the habit of buying items because I love them, not because they're trendy, and honestly, ignoring most trends altogether, which has turned out means I'm more likely to love these items long term. This has reduced so much stress. Save your closet and the earth from another yellow blazer that's gonna be out of style by next fall. For the next habit, we're switching gears and looking at the organization and function of our homes. Let me show you what I mean. One of the most common traits with all of our clients is that they struggle to keep track of things. They basically can't find them when they need them. Their favorite shoes are buried in a closet, but they just can't remember which closet. Or the gifts that they got for their son's birthday are who knows where. This causes frustration, wasted time, and buying so many duplicates, which leads to more stuff. The antidote to losing items is having a designated home for everything, which is habit number 5. A specific hook for the keys, a drawer that's just for dog food, a specific basket for all the swim goggles. The saying, a place for everything and everything in its place, it sounds old-fashioned, but it's been around for 100 years for good reason, because it's true. Unfortunately, the reason people struggle with this is it can be a little harder than it sounds, especially when there's a lot of clutter involved. Let me show you one way to make this more doable. One of my most favorite spots in my kitchen is an area that people usually hate. It's my Tupperware drawer. It's a big, deep drawer in our kitchen, and it has this old, flimsy fabric basket that I've probably had for 15 years at least. I access this drawer about 834 times a day. When I first became a professional organizer, I was always sort of hesitant to share this drawer. It didn't really look kind of magazine worthy. There was nothing kind of cute or extra about it. But I could never bring myself to change it because it works so well. And it works for two reasons. Number one, it's simple, it's easy, it makes sense. And there's ample room for everything. I have room to like flip through the lids, and it's easy to put things away and pull things out when I need them. I suggest trying to create things as simple as possible that you will actually use. An old wooden box to hold lunch snacks, a glass jar to hold rubber bands, a basket from the basement to hold everyone's mitts and gloves. This is going to go so far with being able to keep track of things, which means buying less duplicates, which means less clutter. This also makes it easier to declutter because everything from each category is in one area, so you can see what you own. Remember that creating these spaces can take time, so go easy on yourself and think of long-term goals. Our next habit is the perfect match to this one. It also relates to organization, and it can have a huge impact on keeping the clutter out. Over the past 3 years of working with clients, I don't think we've ever come across a house that doesn't have a pile of paper or multiple piles of paper. Sometimes it's old bills, sometimes it's greeting cards from 8 Christmases ago, our old handwritten to-do lists, bank statements, a huge stack of free Costco magazines. Creating a habit for how to deal with paperwork is priceless. This is habit number 6, and even if it takes months of trial and error to get there, it is worth its weight in gold. A paperwork system and routine is very personal, but I'm just going to show you how we do it just to give you an example that hopefully ignites some ideas for your own home. Step 1 is that I act immediately. As soon as paper comes in, I either toss, a lot of it gets tossed, or if it's a keep, it goes into one of two spots. Number 1, if it requires action, I put it in my paper agenda and I write something on my to-do list for that day or that week or whenever something has to get done. If it's something that needs to be kept but nothing I need to take action on, I just take it downstairs and put it into our filing system. Me personally, I know myself and I know I will not take the time to actually file it in the exact specific file it needs to go in, and I'm okay with that. I know that I will come back and do it later, so I just toss it on top of the box and then periodically I'll go and actually file it. About once a year, always when I'm filing my taxes, I go through and declutter my paper files. I just take a quick look and get rid of everything that's either outdated or I just don't need anymore. When I started tracking our incoming items for June, I completely forgot to track my paperwork. And that's because of how automatic this routine is for me. I barely even register that I'm doing it. That's how much of a habit it has become. If you struggle with paper clutter, try even just adding one step to a routine, one step of a process, and see if that helps you to kind of get motivated and keep going. Our next habit is going to help us incorporate these new habits and just generally maintain our home with so much less pressure. When I first dove into the world of professional organizing, I was bombarded with matching acrylic bins, custom labels, and rainbow organized shelves. I spent months trying to figure out what was the coolest stuff, which turntables I should buy, which baskets are the most trendy. The pressure was killing me. But the more I started working in client homes, the more I realized that in order for a space to be peaceful, functional, clutter-free, it does not need to look perfect. It doesn't require products from magazines or pants to be folded a certain way or our button collection to be sorted by color. If you love that stuff, run with it. I personally love file folding our kids' clothes. I love tuck folding everything. It makes me happy and it makes my life easier. But in times of truly just trying to create peaceful and functional spaces, we don't need perfection. In fact, the pressure from trying to make things perfect often will stop us before we even start. Same goes for decluttering. If you have found that every decluttering strategy that you have read about just doesn't feel right for you, but you love coming home at 5 a.m. after a night shift and spending 90 minutes decluttering your bedroom, amazing, that sounds great. Don't let perfection hold you back. This is why habit number 7 is to stop aiming for perfection, which for some people can be easier said than done. Whenever that perfectionism starts to creep in, I suggest reminding yourself of an area of your home, somewhere in your space, that you do love, that works really well for you. That it doesn't have to look perfect, but it's easy to access things, you love putting things away there, you know where everything is, and just basing it on that. For me, I remember when I first organized our pantry, it has dollar store bins and very basic labels and nothing fancy. And there were a few years where I felt kind of the pressure to spruce it up or make it look a little more current or a little more exciting in some way, because it felt so genuinely functional and peaceful to me. I just couldn't bring myself to change it. Once you start to feel that peace in your home and that relaxation, you will start to care way less about whether it looks like this month's edition of Real Simple magazine. I suggest starting by choosing one of these habits, whichever one you think matches your lifestyle and your goals. Give it a shot for maybe a month. Try to be intentional about it. And as you're moving through your routines and your errands, ask yourself if and how this is helping you to reduce the clutter in your home. If you're looking for an extra decluttering boost and you haven't grabbed my free decluttering question cheat sheet, you can get it for free right now using the link in the description box below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.